The Security Weekly News is live on Tuesdays and Fridays at 12 o'clock Eastern Time most every week. I try to scan and produce a quick look at some major stories to help you keep up with what's going on in and around the industry in a short format. Myself, Jason Wood, and other guest commentators provide greater insight every week. I'm Doug White, and I hope that you will look for the Security Weekly News in all of your favorite podcast catchers and subscribe for the latest content.
Welcome back to Business Security Weekly. I am your host, Matt Alderman, joined by Jason Albuquerque and Ben Carr. Follow us on Twitter for live stream reminders, highlighted clips, memes, and more. You can find us at Sec Weekly. And if you're hanging out on Discord on that last segment, I think Wynn's in Discord now, so you guys can ask him some questions if you're still on the live stream. All right, gents, articles for the week. So this first article, Jason, I took the first part of the title out because it was going down this path of how to justify legacy infrastructure, tech debt. But I'm like, no. These are really good lessons for people to understand how to communicate risk in general. You don't have to just do it for tech debt.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, this isn't just about technical debt or legacy technologies. These are techniques that you can use no matter what risk you're presenting and what type of communication you want to set forth to be able to help influence decisions, right? I mean, you have to have that conversation around risk, number one. We talk about this all the time. What is the business risk? And from there, it's the relationships and trust that you have across the business. Leverage those relationships with your peers, with business unit leaders. Get that consensus on, how to move things forward and mitigate the risk. And be ready for those communications in leaders, executive leadership to kind of push back on you, right? Well, we don't have the funding, or it's been working just fine for the last 5 years. Why do we need to replace this? They would never come after us as a company. Why would an attacker ever want? We have nothing to offer. You have to be ready for those roadblocks that are going to get presented. But it's things we talk about all the time in the show, right? Communicate risk. Have relationships with other leaders so you can build consensus and be able to communicate effectively and expect some questions and some pushback that you can have your A game and bring the answers to the table.
Yeah, I think you came close to touching on one part, and I was wondering if you're going to touch on, Jason, that I found really interesting in the article, and I thought it was really good to focus on, was there's a sentence in there, it's these are normal reactions, but this means more anchoring in business context is needed, which is the entire point of what we talk about a lot, right? You have to be self-aware of this, and like what you have to understand is when you're having those meetings and you get that pushback of this isn't going to happen to us, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like that isn't like you may walk out of that meeting saying, man, they just don't get it. Well, why don't they get it? You didn't explain it correctly. You didn't give it the right business context, right? Yeah. And you didn't put the amount of detail necessary in a framework that they could consume it and say, oh, I get it now. I understand why we need to do this, why we need to make this spend, why we need to make this investment, why we need to make this hire. Like that's super important. And it was a one-liner that just, it encapsulated almost everything in this article for me.
Yeah, no doubt. And you hit the nail on the head with the effective communication. We need to be speaking the language of the business, not the other way around.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah, I'm doing a session with John Wheeler and Jeff Recor for CyberSaint in September, I think September 12th. We're talking about this, like the importance of risk management. If you look around, we talked about this a few weeks back, like where did all the frameworks go? Where did all the analyst coverage around risk management go? We talk about it every single week and how security is a risk discipline and how you have to understand how to relate it back to business risk. But yet no one's covering this stuff except for like us. So
right.
Come get your risk management fix here, folks.
That's it. Come to the leaders in the space.
Yeah. There you go. Article number 2, security basics are hard. Really?
Say easy, do hard. Hey, it's kind of like we've been talking about that for a long time too, huh?
We did a whole segment on this at the beginning of the year, right? Like, what's minimum viable security? Like, what are the things? This article touches on some of them, but remember when we were talking about some of this with John, right? He's like,
Yep.
yeah, I don't care about that one because I get that for free from my IT folks. And it was an interesting list we ended up with. And this article touches on some of those.
Oh yeah, 100%. And it's the one thing that I pulled out of this article. It really doesn't matter if you're talking about patching or identity management or getting MFA in place. It's explaining to the organization that it's incremental progress. It's a journey, right? And that's the commitment that you need to get your business in, is that we will constantly be evolving, we will constantly be improving, and we'll constantly be investing in this. This is a journey, and you need to look at it as progress over time, incremental progress.
Yeah, I want to take a little bit of contrarian viewpoint on this article, because when I read it, look, it's not as easy as sometimes it's made out to be. But I also think, there was many CISOs say it could take 18 months or more to properly roll out MFA. Look, I personally have done it in 3 months to a 6,000 person org, and it went swimmingly. And our first user group was the board of directors. Scary as hell, but it worked, right? So it can be done. Vulnerability management, not all that hard. I mean, a big problem, but do it right and figure out how to own it as an organization, as opposed to, I think if your implementation or the way you approach it, you can add complexity to it and make it super difficult for the organization to consume. The thing is, you've got to approach it in steps and in bites that make sense, and don't let the enemy of good be perfect. You can't go in and try to make everything 100% from the going out of the gate, but you can certainly implement some stuff that's going to change the game and make it a process, not a functional project.
And that's 100% it, Ben. It's a scenario where you have to be talking about the journey. Because the first thing that's going to happen, you have a 6,000 user company in a large infrastructure. The first thing that's going to come out and say, these users will never buy into it. We have unions in our business; they'll never buy into it. We have all this legacy technology and technical debt that we're not going to be able to put single sign-on or MFA around. You're going to get all of these roadblocks put in front of you. The key is to start. Let's start with the low-hanging fruit. Let's start with the leaders. Let's start with the folks where we can start making some progress, then start working our way down to the more difficult implementations and figuring out, what we need to do there to be able to implement that fully. But if you don't, no action is still an action. I say that a lot. No action is still an action. And if you're doing nothing, you're a sitting duck.
Yep. And guess how you prioritize that progress in the next project? It's all based on risk, right? If you have a good risk management
100%.
discipline, you know where the risks are, you know what to prioritize to start you down that journey. It's a perfect guide to help you on that journey. Just got to start with understanding our risk, and then we know how to actually go accomplish some of these security basics.
100% dead on.
Yeah. Crazy thought. Like that was too simple, Alderman. Like anybody could have thought of that. All right, next article. How CEOs can navigate the labor of leadership. Now, look, we talk a lot about leadership. There is no higher level, really, leadership position than the CEO of the company. I like this article because it talks about the stresses of the CEO and what does that mean and how should CEOs adapt and be able to understand this to be good leaders. I thought it was a really good article, and HBR does great articles anyways. I do enjoy a lot of the HBR articles, but I thought this one was really interesting to think about it from a CEO perspective. There's a lot to learn for other leaders.
Yeah, I mean, this translates to other leadership positions too. I mean, obviously, the CEO has probably the most burden in the organization, but I think this lends to other leaders within organizations too, right? There's an extreme amount of pressure on leaders. There's fiduciary responsibility. There's risk management. There's having a team that you're responsible for, right? I mean, think about this. You're responsible for them, their income, their success, their future, their families in many instances. There's a lot of stress. And to be able to manage that and navigate it and control it and be a really good leader, you really need to start looking at tools to keep yourself sane, to keep yourself strong, to have that mental capacity there to be a great leader, because we talk about it all the time. If you're not taking care of yourself as a leader, how are you going to be able to take care of the folks that you're leading, right? So in this article, they really go through 4 really, really good tools that you can leverage, right? One of them was rely on close confidants. I've told you before on the show, I have a personal board of directors. Those are the folks that help me through my struggles. Those are the people I lean on when I'm stressed. I look for advice. I look for guidance. I look for how they may have handled similar struggles. So have that group of folks that you can lean on and have conversations with. They have another one in here that says listen to professional advisors. That's still kind of my my personal board of directors, but I also have other peers that I can bounce ideas off of. And don't take everything personal. I know it's hard to do. That's another say easy, do hard. But try not to take things personal, and know your audience is really the last one. It says anticipate others' emotional reactions. Know your audience. Know how you're working with folks. Know how you're communicating with folks, and really leverage that emotional intelligence to communicate.
Yeah, I think one of the things, whether you look at this article and it's written to the CEO, or you look at our world and you say chief risk officer, CISO, or chief security officer. One of the points that was here is one of the unwritten rules of the CEO is it's unacceptable to talk about the emotional toll the job takes. That is so true across the board. And I think, while it's certainly true for the CEO, it's true for the CISO, right? Like we all talk about, man, that CISO was cool under pressure, right? Like that's one of the things people look for is like a CISO who's going to have an even keel when things are being breached. It's a lot of stress. And so you have to have a way to valve that out. Like you have to be able to, not internalize it. I mean, you'll have a short career and a short life if you do that. You've got to have, I think, as you said, colleagues, people you can trust, people you can talk about. Your staff, they don't want to see that you're stressed out about this. They don't want, you can't really share with them and explode on them. So you've got to find a way to be even tempered and even keeled and emotionally mature about this stuff, but still have those ways to deal with the stress and tension and pressure. And, look, we need to start, I think, as a whole society looking at, mental stress and tension and mental issues in a different way than, hey, it's a negative, right? It's just, it's part of the world that we live in and part of the job.
Yeah, now more than ever. I think this mental stress on society in general is taking its toll. Just watch the news every day.
Yeah, and I think it's all added. I think we have to be good partners too to our friends and colleagues in the industry, right? Like, how often do we get down when there's a breach or something, and we talk ill of those people, or we make assumptions about what happened. We don't have necessarily all the details. And one of the first things I'd say is a CISO who's having troubles and being breached. Give them a call, reach out, like, be a friendly hand to, or a shoulder for them to lean on, and, be able to share openly. You're living those situations too, and you're happy to talk through it with them if they need it.
Yep. And that leads into this next article around delegation, right? Because think about this for a second, right? I'm CEO, lots of stressors going on. What things can I delegate to my leadership team to take some of that pressure and stress off, right? And then how does that lead to a better environment, a better organization, right? It's not just about, delegating tasks. This article talks about how to delegate and empower the entire organization to help. And I link it back to the previous story where you think about all the stress that the CEO's under, and how important it is to have the right leadership team that you can trust and delegate part of that work off to take some of that stress and pressure off of you, right? I don't think we do enough of that. We kind of, sometimes leaders just take it all on themselves, kind of pull it all together and just try to figure it all out on their own. No, leverage the rest of your team.
That's it. And you really hit the nail on the head, Matt, because you used the magic word trust. And you know what I say, trust is that foundation of every relationship. So how are you going to have a respectful relationship with the staff on your team if you don't trust them to do things, right? If you don't empower them to help move the company forward and help move the team forward and grow the team, that trust will start to be eroded. You'll start having staff looking at you saying, why don't you trust me to do these things? Why aren't you trusting me to help grow the company and take these action items on? So it can have an adverse effect if you're not delegating and trusting people to get things done. They'll start feeling it, and unfortunately, it starts to breed a bad relationship, right? So you want to be able to give these folks the trust and the confidence to accomplish things. Give them those actions to be able to help grow your company and grow your team.
Yeah, and I think we've probably all worked for people that we've sat and said, "Man, why isn't that person letting me help them? Right? Why aren't they delegating out and giving me some of the authority to do some of the stuff? Because I know they're overburdened with work." But then you have to have the self-awareness to look at it and say, "Well, why am I not doing that with my people?" And I've heard other leaders, trust is earned, not given, right? Yeah, but you also have to keep people, you have to give people the opportunity to earn that trust, right? And failure is okay, like as long as you learn from the mistakes. So utilize your teams, delegate, push down, give people an opportunity to learn how to be a better individual contributor or a better leader.
Right.
Yeah. Well, what it does, it not only erodes trust, it then puts more stress back up a level. That stress then manifests itself in other ways. And that leads to the next article where nobody in the environment will speak up because they're just too afraid. You've basically shut down the culture, and you're not a positive culture anymore because everybody's afraid to speak out. So this next article, it's not the last one, gets into how do you get people to actually speak up and create that positive culture?
Right. I mean, what you're talking about earlier is just promoting groupthink. It's the second bullet item in the list of, separate loyalty from agreement. Right. I mean, at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're not breeding just this culture of conformity and do everything that I say. You want an organization that has diversity in thought and can innovate because of that diversity in thought. And you will completely undermine that diversity of thought if, you create that culture of that conformity, that groupthink.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I think you've got to be open to allow people to, again, I think allow people to make mistakes, right? Allow people to get, every answer doesn't have to be correct, right? But why is that? Why are they coming to that conclusion? Did you give them wrong direction or some way to get to that answer that they thought was wrong, or is it education or training? Allow people to be emotional. Like again, I don't think we need to cry in every meeting, but I think allowing people to express fear, anxiety, happiness. People are people. Like, we need to stop treating people like automatons and AI, and actually expect them to be able to be productive members of our team.
Yeah. I mean, that really hits on the first one. It says separate worth from worthiness, right? Worthiness implies a performance test. Simply being human qualifies you for inclusion and worth, right? So if you want that diversity of thought, you have to include folks in the conversation. I loved that one. The other one I loved too was separate status from an opinion, because the way they worded it was distance from power often prevents people from speaking up. And we talk about this on Business Security Weekly all the time. Your role and your title does not distinguish leadership capability, right? Anybody can be a leader. Everybody is a leader in the organization. Everybody has that opportunity to be a leader, no matter your role, no matter your title. So, separate that status from your ability to form an opinion.
Oh, very true. Last article. Let's see how they title this one. How to hire cybersecurity professionals. Obviously, we've covered aspects of this over the.
Matt, I thought this was an easy one. It's a simple answer. You just back up a dump truck full of cash.
All right, so hold on. Ben said just back up a ton of cash and just dump it off.
Dump truck loaded with cash. Dump it off.
Yeah. Jason, you guys were talking over each other.
What I was saying was, I love the fact that this article is from a consortium called SHRM. And SHRM is the HR professional. It's like the globally recognized HR professionals group. So to have this article come out from SHRM is saying something.
It's positive for once, right? It's the HR professionals, like, people, this is what you have to do, right? Like, finally, somebody's starting to listen, because guess where all the openings go? They all go to HR to get the job recs put out there. So who do you think is writing these job descriptions and all the requirements for these? So to have it come out from this organization is actually very positive, Jason.
That's it. 100% agreed. It's like somebody was listening to the cybersecurity professionals who been advocating for this stuff. So that's a good thing, and the things they cover are the aspects we talk about all the time. Boost up training and get that bench where you can start building that bench of folks. Look beyond your traditional talent pools, right? And stop requiring master's degrees in cybersecurity to get an entry-level position. Diversity in your workforce, and embrace the fact that, we need to start bringing in cybersecurity professionals to help.
Yeah, and it's not only just bringing them in, Jason, it's actually giving them access to other colleagues and other opportunities, right? It's not just cybersecurity, you stay in your little domain. It's no. Let them collaborate. Give them opportunities across the organization. Just as important.
That's right. 100%. Get them embedded into the DNA of the organization.
How do you think they're going to learn the business, folks, and understand how security affects business risk? Maybe by allowing them to work with their colleagues and understand the other parts of the business.
Ding, ding, ding.
There you go.
There you go. Gentlemen, always a pleasure. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you, everyone, for watching and listening. We'll see you in 2 weeks on Business Security Weekly.